Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station Artemis, her dark eyes fixed on the strange object that had appeared in Earth's orbit just hours ago. The metallic structure, nearly 2 miles long, gleamed with an iridescent sheen that defied Earth's known metallurgy. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, they had finally arrived, though not in any way humanity had expected. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," Lieutenant James Chen's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Same frequency as before, but this time they're broadcasting in multiple Earth languages." Elena's jaw tightened. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a being that appeared almost crystalline in nature. The Nexarian ambassador, as it had identified itself, possessed a translucent body structure that pulsed with internal light. Its voice, when it spoke, carried an artificial smoothness that made Elena's skin crawl. "People of Earth, we come offering friendship and technological advancement. The Nexarian Collective seeks only peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange. We request an immediate audience with your world leaders." Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Maya Patel, the station's chief xenobiologist. Maya's expression mirrored her own skepticism. Something about this felt wrong, too perfect, too convenient. "Captain," Maya whispered, gesturing to her tablet, "look at these readings. Their ship's energy signature. It's identical to the pattern we detected during the Mars colony blackout last month." Elena's blood ran cold. The Mars incident had left 50 colonists dead, their life support systems mysteriously failing in what had been claimed as a solar flare anomaly. But if Maya's readings were correct— "Get me a secure line to General Hammond," Elena ordered, turning away from the holographic ambassador. "Priority Alpha." As she waited for the connection, Elena's mind raced through the implications. The Nexarians had been watching them, testing their defenses, probably for months or years. The Mars colony blackout hadn't been an accident, it had been a weapons test. "Captain Rodriguez," General Hammond's weathered face appeared on her private screen. "I assume this is about our visitors." "Sir, we have evidence suggesting hostile intent. The Mars colony wasn't hit by a solar flare, it was them. They've been probing our weaknesses." The general's expression hardened. "Are you certain?" "Dr. Patel has confirmed the energy signatures match." "Sir, I recommend we activate Protocol Omega immediately." Protocol Omega, the contingency plan that many had dismissed as paranoid when it was established 5 years ago. A complete defensive network hidden throughout the solar system, designed to activate at a moment's notice if humanity ever faced an extraterrestrial threat. "Understood," Hammond nodded grimly. "I'll inform the Security Council. Keep them talking, Captain. We need time." The transmission ended, and Elena turned back to the main viewing window. More Nexarian ships had appeared, emerging from what appeared to be fold space portals. Their crystalline structures caught the sunlight, creating beautiful but ominous displays across Earth's orbit. "Lieutenant Chen," Elena called out, "prepare to broadcast my response to their request." She straightened her uniform and faced the communication array. The fate of humanity might well depend on her next words, and her ability to buy them time. "Nexarian Ambassador, we are honored by your presence," she began, each word carefully measured. "However, our protocols for first contact require careful consideration and consultation among our world leaders. We request a period of 48 Earth hours to prepare for proper diplomatic relations." The ambassador's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been amusement. "Of course, Captain Rodriguez. We understand the need for proper protocols." Something in the way it said those last words sent a chill down Elena's spine. Maya's tablet suddenly lit up with alerts. "Captain," she whispered urgently, "they're scanning our entire solar system. Deep penetrating scans. They're mapping everything. Resources, installations, population centers." Elena maintained her diplomatic smile while her mind raced. They needed those 48 hours. General Hammond would be activating humanity's hidden defenses, but it would take time. The Nexarians couldn't be allowed to realize that their deception had been discovered. "We would be happy to provide you with information about our culture while we await the diplomatic preparations," Elena offered, buying more time. "Perhaps we could arrange a preliminary exchange of historical records." The ambassador's form pulsed brighter. "That would be most enlightening." Over the next several hours, Elena orchestrated a careful dance of information exchange, providing carefully curated data about Earth's history and culture while monitoring the Nexarians' continuing scans of their solar system. Maya worked tirelessly in the background, analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the alien vessels. 26 hours into their countdown, Maya made a breakthrough. "Elena," she called out softly, using the captain's first name, something she only did in the most serious situations. "Their ships, they're not just scanning. They're positioning themselves at strategic points throughout the system, classic invasion formation." Elena accessed the tactical display on her private screen. Maya was right. The Nexarian ships had spread out across the solar system, positioning themselves near key resource points and human installations. They were preparing for something big. "How long until they're in position?" Elena asked. "At their current rate, less than 10 hours. They weren't going to wait for the 48-hour diplomatic window to close. The Nexarians were planning to strike early, probably hoping to catch humanity off guard. Elena opened a secure channel to General Hammond. "Sir, we have confirmation. Hostile forces positioning for attack. Estimated 10 hours until they're ready." "Understood, Captain. Protocol Omega is nearly ready. We need 3 more hours. Keep them busy." Elena looked out at the massive alien ships, their crystalline structures now seeming less beautiful and more predatory. Humanity had prepared for this possibility, had hidden weapons and defenses throughout their solar system, but would it be enough? The technological gap between their civilizations was vast. But as she watched the Nexarian ships maneuver, Elena remembered something her grandmother used to say: "The most dangerous animal isn't the biggest or strongest, it's the one fighting for survival." The Nexarians had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they had made one critical mistake. They had threatened humanity's home. "Lieutenant Chen," Elena called out, prepared to initiate Emergency Protocol Delta. "Dr. Patel, I need everything you've learned about their ship's energy signatures." They had 3 hours to prepare humanity's response to the coming attack. 3 hours to ready themselves for a fight that would determine the fate of their species. Elena looked down at her homeworld, blue and beautiful below. The Nexarians thought they had found an easy target, a primitive species they could deceive and conquer. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The next few hours would change everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Because if there was one thing humans had learned throughout their history, it was how to face impossible odds and emerge stronger. The game of deception was nearly over. Soon, it would be time for humanity to show its true face, not the diplomatic mask they had been wearing, but the steel beneath. The Nexarians wanted Earth's resources. They would have to fight for every inch. "Let them come," Elena thought. "We're ready." Dr. Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the holographic display floating before her in the underground facility known only as Deep Stone. The quantum equations spinning in the air seemed to mock her with their complexity. Somewhere in this mathematical maze lay humanity's best hope for survival. The third variation failed, her assistant, Dr. Marcus Wong, reported grimly. The quantum field collapsed after only 60 seconds. Sarah slammed her fist on the desk, sending empty coffee cups rattling. They were running out of time. Above ground, the Nexarian fleet had begun their initial attacks on Earth's outer colonies, their crystalline ships cutting through conventional defenses like paper. "Dr. Chen," General Hammond's voice came through the lab's secure channel. "Status report." "The quantum disruption field is still unstable," Sarah replied, running her fingers through her graying hair. "We can generate it, but maintaining it is proving more challenging than expected. How long? Sarah looked at the simulation results scrolling across her screen. I don't know. The mathematics are solid, but translating theory into practical application. Doctor, Hammond interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of billions of lives. We don't have the luxury of perfection. The Nexarians have already taken Mars. Jupiter Station is under siege. We need a weapon. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the videos from Mars. The Nexarian weapons had turned the colony's atmosphere processor into a death trap, suffocating thousands. But rushing the quantum disruption technology could be just as devastating. Sir, if we get this wrong, we could tear a hole in space-time. The collateral damage could be worse than anything the Nexarians could do. And if we do nothing, humanity dies. Hammond's words hung in the air like a physical weight. Marcus stepped forward, pulling up a new set of calculations. Dr. Chen, look at this. What if we're approaching this from the wrong angle? Instead of trying to maintain a stable field. Sarah's eyes widened as she followed his logic. We let it collapse. Controlled instability. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, modifying equations at lightning speed. The simulation results began to change, showing new possibilities. General, she called out, excitement creeping into her voice, we might have something. Not what we originally planned, but potentially more effective. Explain. Instead of trying to create a sustained quantum disruption field to disable their ships, we create localized quantum collapses. Smaller controlled bursts that would essentially create temporary dead zones where their technology simply cannot function. The general's hologram leaned forward. Can it be weaponized? Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, we can package the generator into missile-sized delivery systems. When detonated, each one would create a sphere of quantum instability roughly 5 kilometers in diameter. Inside that sphere, the crystalline technology would be completely useless. Side effects. Minimal impact on conventional technology. Our ships and weapons would still function. The field only affects quantum-based systems, which is exactly what the Nexarians rely on. For the first time in days, hope flickered across Hammond's face. How soon can you have a prototype? Sarah looked at Marcus, who was already running production simulations. 24 hours for the first test unit. Maybe 72 for full-scale production, assuming we get priority access to all quantum manufacturing facilities. You have 12 hours for the prototype, Doctor. I'm sending Colonel James Chen to oversee security. The Nexarians have begun probing for our research facilities. We think they know we're working on something. Sarah's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her brother. James had been commanding Earth's special forces in guerrilla actions against Nexarian ground forces. If they were pulling him for security detail, the situation must be dire indeed. Understood, sir. We'll be ready. As Hammond's hologram faded, Sarah turned to her team. The lab was already buzzing with renewed energy, scientists and engineers moving with fresh purpose. Marcus, I need you to coordinate with the quantum manufacturing teams. Dr. Pertol, reconfigure the containment protocols for the new design. Everyone else, let's solve this stability issue. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of calculations, simulations, and desperate improvisation. Sarah lost count of the coffee cups, the failed attempts, the moments of despair followed by breakthrough. James arrived 6 hours in, setting up security teams and evacuation protocols. Looking rough, sis, he commented during one of her rare breaks. Sarah managed a tired smile. You'll want to talk. Nice collection of new scars. You should see the other guy. Actually, you can't. Turns out their crystalline forms shatter quite nicely when you hit them right. His attempt at humor was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the facility. James was immediately alert, weapon drawn. Multiple bogies incoming, a security officer reported. Nexarian dropships, at least 3 squadrons. They found us, James growled. Sarah, tell me you're close. She looked at the prototype taking shape in the manufacturing chamber. 30 minutes, maybe less. You have 10. After that, were implementing scorched earth protocols. Sarah knew what that meant. If the Nexarians couldn't be stopped, the entire facility would be vaporized, taking all their research with it. They couldn't risk letting the enemy capture their work. Everyone, she called out to her team. Final sprint. No mistakes, no hesitation. This is it. Above them, the sounds of battle began. Earth's defensive forces engaging the Nexarian attack ships. James coordinated with his security teams, preparing for ground assault. Sarah focused everything on the prototype, her fingers dancing across control surfaces as she made final adjustments. The quantum mechanics had to be perfect. One miscalculation could turn their weapon into a doomsday device. Energy signature stable, Marcus reported. Containment field holding. Packaging complete, Dr. Potel added. Delivery system integrated. 8 minutes. The facility shook with nearby explosions. Dust rained from the ceiling. They've breached the upper levels, James called out. Sarah. Almost there. 7 minutes. The prototype's housing sealed with a satisfying hiss. Final diagnostic checks running. 6 minutes. Multiple breaches, they're inside the facility. 5 minutes. Sarah's hands were steady as she initiated the final sequence. Years of research, countless sacrifices, all coming down to this moment. 4 minutes. Prototype armed and ready, she announced. Transmitting data to secure servers now. 3 minutes. The lab doors exploded inward. James and his team opened fire as crystalline forms emerged through the smoke. 2 minutes. Get that prototype out of here, James shouted over the gunfire. Everything else is expendable. 1 minute. Sarah grabbed the prototype, no larger than a football, and ran for the emergency exit as humanity's soldiers fought to buy her time. This tiny device carried humanity's hopes. If it worked, it would change everything. Behind her, James triggered the facility's self-destruct sequence. Sarah reached the evacuation pod just as the first tremors began. As she strapped in, clutching the prototype to her chest, she said a silent prayer for her brother and everyone else sacrificing themselves to give this weapon a chance. The pod launched, rushing through underground tunnels toward a secret base thousands of miles away. Sarah closed her eyes, exhausted but determined. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the hard part, mass-producing these weapons and implementing them before the Nexarians could adapt. The race for humanity's survival had entered its next phase, and for the first time since the invasion began, Sarah allowed herself to feel something close to optimism. They had their weapon. Now it was time to show these aliens why you should never corner a species that had spent its entire existence learning to survive against impossible odds. The silent weapon was ready. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Victor Okonjo stood at the helm of the ESS Hyperion, Earth's newest stealth carrier, as it drifted silently through the asteroid belt. Around him, 20 other ships of the newly formed Thunderstrike fleet maintained their positions, hidden within the gravitational shadows of various asteroids. Each vessel carried multiple quantum disruption weapons, humanity's secret weapon, now designated as silencers. Status report, Victor commanded, his deep voice barely above a whisper, despite the fact that sound couldn't travel in space. All ships maintaining emissions control. Admiral. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka responded from her tactical station. Nexarian patrols are continuing their standard sweep pattern. They haven't detected us. Victor nodded, studying the holographic display showing enemy positions. The Nexarians had established their main supply line between Mars and Jupiter, their crystalline ships moving in precise formations that spoke of absolute confidence in their superiority. That arrogance would be their undoing. Message from Dr. Chen, Yuki announced. Final calibrations for the silencers are complete. All ships report weapons ready. Very well. Victor straightened his uniform, a habit from his decades of service. Send the coded signal to all ships. Operation Thunderstrike commences in 30 minutes. As the countdown began, Victor reflected on the weeks of preparation that had led to this moment. After Dr. Chen's successful prototype test, humanity had transformed its entire industrial capacity to mass-producing silencers. Meanwhile, the Nexarians had continued their advance through the solar system, seemingly unstoppable. But they hadn't found all of humanity's hidden shipyards. Deep within the asteroid belt, a new type of fleet had been assembled, ships designed specifically to deploy the silencers with maximum effectiveness. 20 minutes to execution, Yuki announced. Victor opened a secure channel to all ships. This is Admiral Okonjo. For those who haven't heard the full briefing, I'll make this simple. The Nexarians think they've won. They think they've seen everything humanity can throw at them. They're wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. Each of your ships carries enough silencers to create a quantum dead zone spanning 50 kilometers. When these weapons detonate, every piece of Nexarian technology within range will simply stop working. No shields, no weapons, no life support. 10 minutes. They came to our home, threatened our people, and expected us to bow down. Instead, we're going to show them why humanity has survived every threat we've ever faced. We're going to remind them that technology isn't everything. Sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most effective. 5 minutes. Battle positions, Victor ordered. Prepare to execute on my mark. The bridge crew moved with practiced precision. Weeks of drills had prepared them for this moment. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, yet like most simple plans, its success would depend entirely on timing and execution. 3 minutes. Victor watched as a massive Nexarian supply convoy entered the target zone. 15 capital ships, each nearly 2 miles long, escorted by dozens of smaller vessels. Their crystalline structures gleamed in the starlight, beautiful and deadly. 2 minutes. All ships, final weapons check, Yuki called out. Confirm silencer targeting solutions. One by one, the fleet commanders reported ready. 1 minute. Victor took a deep breath. Everything hinged on this first strike. If they failed, the Nexarians would adapt. They wouldn't get another chance at surprise. 30 seconds. The enemy convoy continued on its prescribed course, completely unaware of the trap they were about to trigger. 10 seconds. Victor's hand hovered over the command interface. Mark. The Thunderstrike fleet emerged from hiding simultaneously, their engines flaring to life as they launched their payload. Hundreds of silencers streaked across space, their quantum warheads armed and ready. The Nexarian ships reacted instantly, their superior sensors detecting the incoming threats. But they made a crucial mistake. They raised their energy shields to maximum power. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The silencers detonated in a cascading wave of quantum disruption. There was no visible explosion, no dramatic light show. Instead, spears of absolute technological death expanded outward, overlapping and combining into a massive dead zone. The effect on the Nexarian ships was immediate and catastrophic. Their crystalline structures, dependent on quantum-level coherence, began to fail. Shields disappeared. Weapons went dark. Life support systems crashed. All ships, Phase 2, Victor commanded, conventional weapons free, target their primary power nodes. The human fleet opened fire with railguns and conventional missiles, simple, brutal weapons that required no quantum technology to function. The Nexarian ships, their defenses stripped away by the silencers, were suddenly vulnerable. Direct hits confirmed, Yuki reported, excitement creeping into her professional tone. Enemy vessels experiencing catastrophic systems failure. Victor watched as the mighty Nexarian convoy began to break apart. Some ships tried to retreat, but the quantum dead zone prevented their engines from functioning. Others attempted to fight back with backup systems, but without their primary technology, they were hopelessly outmatched. Sir, Yuki called out, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the enemy capital ships. Their quantum cores are destabilizing. All ships, maintain distance, Victor ordered. Prepare for secondary explosions. The warning came just in time. The first Nexarian capital ship erupted in a spectacular display of quantum energy, its crystalline structure shattering into millions of pieces. Others followed, their advanced technology proving to be their undoing as system after system cascaded into failure. Within 20 minutes, the entire convoy had been neutralized. The supply line between Mars and Jupiter had been severed, and humanity had just proved that the Nexarians weren't invincible. Status report, Victor commanded, already thinking about the enemy's probable counterattack. 15 enemy capital ships destroyed, Yuki responded. Multiple escort vessels neutralized. No survivors detected. Our fleet reports minimal damage, primarily from debris impact. Victor nodded, satisfaction warring with the solemnity of the moment. They had just killed thousands of Nexarians, but this was war. The enemy had started it, thinking humanity would be an easy conquest. Now they would learn the cost of that mistake. Send word to command, he ordered. Operation Thunderstrike successful. Phase 2 ready to commence on their order. As the message was transmitted, Victor studied the battlefield. The debris field would serve as a warning to other Nexarian forces, and as a reminder that humanity's apparent technological inferiority didn't make them helpless. Sir, Yuki called out, we're detecting multiple quantum signatures. Large Nexarian fleet formations changing course. They're responding to the attack. Victor allowed himself a grim smile. Good, that means they're scared. Send word to all ships. Prepare for Phase 2. The real fight is about to begin. The Thunderstrike fleet moved into new positions, ready to spring more traps. The Nexarians would come in force now, angry and seeking revenge. But humanity was ready. This first victory was just the beginning. Operation Thunderstrike had shown that humanity could hurt them. Now it was time to show them just how much they had underestimated the species they had chosen to make their enemy. The war for Earth's survival had entered a new phase, and for the first time since the invasion began, humanity was no longer just defending, they were taking the fight to the enemy. The stars seemed to shine brighter as Victor prepared his fleet for the battles to come. The Nexarians had wanted war. Now they would learn what that truly meant when facing humanity. Director Diana Reyes of Earth Intelligence Service walked through the holographic reconstruction of the Sydney massacre, her face a mask of controlled fury. Around her, the final moments of 200 civilians played out in ghostly blue light, their last seconds before Nexarian infiltrators triggered a quantum pulse that liquefied their neural pathways. Show me the security footage again, she commanded. Focus on the maintenance worker. The hologram shifted, zooming in on a seemingly ordinary human performing routine repairs on a climate control unit. Only it wasn't human at all. Pause. Diana leaned closer, studying the figure's movements. There. That micro-hesitation before using the tool. They still haven't perfected human motor patterns. Colonel Maria Santos, her chief of counterintelligence, nodded grimly. They're getting better, though. This one fooled biometric scans, DNA tests, even the new quantum resonance detectors. Because it wasn't using technological camouflage, Diana concluded, they found a way to actually restructure their crystalline biology to mimic human tissue. Evolution rather than simulation. The implications were terrifying. The Nexarians had adapted to humanity's quantum disruption weapons by fundamentally changing their own nature. They were learning, evolving, becoming more dangerous with each passing day. How many more are out there? Maria asked the question that had been keeping them both awake at night. Diana pulled up another hologram, this one showing suspected infiltration sites across Earth. Red dots marked confirmed incidents, yellow for suspected presence. The planet looked like it had caught a deadly case of measles. Too many, and those are just the ones we know about. She waved her hand, bringing up casualty reports. 6 major attacks in the past week, 3 quantum pulse detonations, 2 mass poisonings, and 1 attempted hack of our defense mainframe. The mainframe breach worries me most, Maria admitted. They nearly succeeded in disabling the planetary shield grid. If Lieutenant Commander Park hadn't spotted the anomaly. Diana's comm unit chimed with an urgent alert. Director, emergency transmission from Lunar Base. Priority Alpha. Put it through. The holographic space cleared, replaced by the harried face of Dr. James Chen, one of the few survivors from the Deep Stone facility attack. Director, we've confirmed it, he said without preamble. The quantum signature variations we detected during the Sydney attack, they're not random. It's a communication pattern. Diana's blood ran cold. They're coordinating. Worse, they're building something. We've detected similar energy patterns at multiple sites across the planet. Whatever these infiltrators are, they're not just gathering intelligence or conducting attacks. They're components of a larger system. Maria swore softly in Spanish. A distributed quantum network. They're turning our own planet into a weapon against us. How long? Diana demanded. Based on the energy buildup patterns, James consulted something off-screen. 72 hours at most before the network achieves critical mass. When it does, he didn't need to finish. They all knew what would happen. A planet-wide quantum cascade that would destroy every complex nervous system on Earth. Humanity would be wiped out in seconds. We need to hit every suspected site simultaneously, Maria suggested. Use the silencers too. No, Diana interrupted. That's what they're expecting. These infiltrators have adapted to our quantum disruption technology. We need something they won't see coming. She turned to James. Doctor, your sister's original research, didn't it mention something about quantum entanglement being inherently unstable at a biological level? James' eyes widened as he followed her thinking. Yes. If these infiltrators are using their modified biology to generate the quantum network, they'd be incredibly vulnerable to forced entanglement collapse. But we'd need a quantum initiator, Diana finished. Like the one stored in the Orbital Defense Center, the one they tried to destroy last week. Maria stepped forward. Director, if we try this and fail, we'll lose our last line of defense against their fleet. If we don't try, we're dead anyway. Diana's fingers flew across her command interface, sending encoded orders across the globe. Colonel, activate all sleeper cells. I want every EIS agent we have, active or retired, ready to move in 24 hours. What's the plan? Diana pulled up a new hologram, this one showing Earth's major population centers. We're going to let them think they've won. Feed them intel, suggesting we've discovered their network, but think it's meant for something else. Maybe a communication array or weapons platform. They'll accelerate their timeline, try to achieve critical mass before we can stop them. And when they do, Maria asked. We trigger the quantum initiator, using their own network as a transmission medium. Instead of creating a planetary death field, they'll destroy themselves. James looked skeptical. The calculations would have to be perfect. One mistake, and we could trigger the cascade ourselves. Then we better not make any mistakes. Diana's voice was steel. Doctor, I need you and Sarah working on the calculations. Colonel, get our people in position. We have 72 hours to save the human race. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation, counterintelligence, and carefully orchestrated deception. Diana coordinated it all from her command center deep beneath Geneva, watching as pieces moved into position across the global chessboard. EIS agents positioned themselves near suspected infiltrator sites, waiting for the signal. Military forces were quietly repositioned, ready to respond to any unexpected developments. And in lunar orbit, Dr. Sarah Chen worked frantically to perfect the calculations that would turn the enemy's weapon against them. At hour 69, they detected the first signs of acceleration in the quantum network's formation. The infiltrators had taken the bait. Energy readings spiking across all monitored sites, James reported. They're moving faster than anticipated. Network coherence at 60% and climbing. Diana watched the global display as more and more nodes activated. Each one represented an infiltrator, revealing just how deeply they had penetrated human society. 70%, James called out. Sarah says we need to wait until they reach at least 95% coherence for the reversal to work. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. Diana could feel the weight of billions of lives resting on their gamble. 80%, 85%. Reports began flooding in from around the world. Infiltrators were dropping their disguises, their crystalline forms becoming visible as they channeled more energy into the network. 90%. Emergency broadcasts filled the airways as civilians panicked at the sight of aliens revealing themselves in their midst. Diana had to fight the urge to trigger the initiator early. 95%. Director, we have to do it now. Diana's hand slammed down on the activation control. Initiator active. Dr. Chen, begin the sequence. From lunar orbit, the quantum initiator powered up, its energy connecting with the infiltrator's network. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screaming began. Across the globe, the crystalline infiltrators began to shatter, their modified biology unable to handle the forced quantum entanglement. The network they had built to destroy humanity became their own execution chamber. Network collapse at 20%, 50%, 75%. Diana watched the display as red dots winked out one by one, each representing an infiltrator being destroyed. The gamble had worked. Final count, Maria reported several hours later. Over 10,000 infiltrators neutralized, civilian casualties minimal. We've confirmed complete network collapse. Diana nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Nexarians would learn from this failure, just as they had learned from others. Get me a secure line to Admiral Okonjo, she ordered. The Nexarians just lost their covert advantage. They'll be angry, desperate. That makes them dangerous. As she waited for the connection, Diana studied the after-action reports. The enemy had proven they could adapt, could change their very nature to try to defeat humanity. But humans could adapt too. Each encounter taught them more about their enemy, revealed new weaknesses to exploit. The next phase of the war would be even more brutal than the last. But humanity was ready. They had faced the enemy within and emerged stronger. Now it was time to take the fight back to the stars. The real question was, what would the Nexarians try next? And would humanity be ready for it? Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Combined Earth Defense Council, her holographic presentation showing the most ambitious military operation in human history. Around the table sat the architects of humanity's resistance, Admiral Okonjo, Director Reyes, General Hammond, and representatives from every major military power on Earth. Operation Starbreak, Sarah began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. A three-phase assault designed to end this war once and for all. The hologram shifted, showing the current position of Nexarian forces throughout the solar system. Their fleet had consolidated around Jupiter after the failure of their infiltration campaign, building something massive in the planet's orbit. First, the bad news, Sarah continued. Our long-range quantum scans have confirmed our worst fears. The Nexarians are constructing what appears to be a quantum amplification array. When complete, it will allow them to project quantum disruption fields on a scale we've never seen before. How bad? Hammond asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. Total planetary devastation. They could effectively sterilize Earth from Jupiter's orbit. No defense grid could stop it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. After months of failing to defeat humanity through conventional means, the Nexarians had decided to simply erase them from existence. Now the good news, Sarah said, changing the display. We found a weakness. The array requires massive amounts of energy, more than they can generate from conventional sources. They're drawing power directly from Jupiter's magnetosphere. Admiral Okonjo leaned forward, and that makes them vulnerable. Extremely. Sarah highlighted several points in the holographic model. The energy collection system is delicate. A precisely calculated disruption of Jupiter's magnetic field could trigger a cascade failure in their entire network. How precise are we talking about? Director Reyes asked. We would need to trigger simultaneous quantum detonations at exactly these coordinates. Sarah marked 7 points around Jupiter's equator. The timing would have to be accurate to within milliseconds. One mistake, and we either miss the window entirely or trigger a magnetic storm that could destroy everything in the system, including Earth. General Hammond stood, studying the tactical display. The Nexarians will have those points heavily defended. Getting ships into position would be nearly impossible. Which is why we don't use ships, Sarah replied. A new hologram appeared, showing a modified version of the quantum initiator they had used against the infiltrators. We use these quantum insertion probes, stealth devices designed to be completely invisible to Nexarian sensors. Because they're not technological, Director Reyes realized, understanding dawning in her eyes. They're biological. You've adapted the infiltrator's own metamorphic capabilities. Sarah nodded, combined with everything we've learned about their quantum detection systems. Each probe contains a living computer grown from modified human and Nexarian DNA. They can think, adapt, and most importantly, mask their quantum signatures by mimicking natural space phenomena. Admiral Okonjo studied the specifications scrolling past. The delivery window would still be incredibly tight. We would need a distraction, something big enough to draw their entire fleet's attention. That's Phase 2, Sarah said, bringing up a new tactical display. While the probes move into position, the combined fleet launches an all-out assault on their main force. Every ship we have, hitting them with everything we've got. A suicide mission, Hammond stated flatly. No, Sarah's voice was firm. A calculated risk. The fleet doesn't need to win. They just need to hold the Nexarians' attention for 20 minutes. Long enough for the probes to reach their positions and synchronize. And Phase 3? Director Reyes asked. We trigger the probes, disrupt Jupiter's magnetosphere, and pray my calculations are correct. Sarah met each council member's gaze. If they are, the resulting quantum cascade will destroy their entire array and any ship connected to their power network. If they're not, well, we won't have to worry about losing the war. Silence fell over the room as the council members processed the plan. It was audacious, desperate, and incredibly dangerous. It was also their only chance. Admiral Okonjo was the first to speak. I'll command the fleet personally. How long until the probes are ready? 72 hours, Sarah replied. That's cutting it close. Our latest intel suggests the Nexarians' array will be operational in 96. Then we have no choice, General Hammond declared. I move to authorize Operation Starbreak effective immediately. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the greatest military operation in human history began to unfold. Sarah worked tirelessly with her team, perfecting the probes while the combined fleet gathered for their final battle. Ships arrived from every corner of human space, everything from massive carriers to improvised fighters. Every vessel that could carry a weapon was pressed into service. Admiral Okonjo's voice echoed through every ship's comm system as the fleet prepared to depart. This is humanity's finest hour, not because we're guaranteed victory, but because we refuse to submit to extinction. Today we prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our determination to survive against any odds. The probes were launched first, subtle as whispers against the vast backdrop of space. Their biological computers activated, beginning their careful journey toward Jupiter. 24 hours later, the combined fleet made its move. All ships, battle formations, Okonjo commanded from the bridge of the Hyperion. Remember, we're not fighting to win, we're fighting for time. Every second we keep their attention is another second closer to victory. The battle that followed would be remembered as long as humanity endured. over 3,000 human ships against an Nexarian fleet 5 times their size. The space around Jupiter erupted in a fury of quantum weapons, conventional explosives, and desperate courage. Sarah monitored the probe's progress from a secure facility on Luna, watching as they navigated through the chaos of battle. 6 hours in, the first probe reached its designated position, then the second, the third. Probe 4 is offline, her systems reported, redirecting backup. Sarah's hands flew across her controls, compensating for loss. They had planned for casualties, built-in redundancies. They only needed 7 probes to succeed out of the 12 launched. The battle raged on. The human fleet fought with everything they had, using every trick and strategy they'd learned throughout the war. Ships sacrificed themselves to block quantum attacks meant for their squad mates. Fighters executed suicide runs to disable Nexarian sensor arrays. 5th probe in position, the system reported. 6th probe approaching coordinates. On the main battlefield, the human fleet was being systematically destroyed. Admiral Okonjo's voice remained steady as he coordinated their defense, buying seconds with lies. 7th probe ready, final synchronization beginning. Sarah watched the countdown begin, her heart pounding. Everything hinged on this moment. Thousands had died to get them here. If she was wrong about any of her calculations. Synchronization complete, ready for quantum initiation. Sarah took a deep breath. Admiral, get your ships out of there. We're ready. Understood. Okonjo's voice was calm despite the chaos around him. All ships, emergency withdrawal. Clear the blast radius. Sarah's finger hovered over the activation control. Around Jupiter, 7 invisible probes powered up their quantum initiators, preparing to trigger a disruption that would shake the largest planet in the solar system. God forgive me, Sarah whispered, and pressed the button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Jupiter's magnetosphere began to ripple like a disturbed pond. The ripples grew, became waves, then massive distortions that twisted magnetic field lines into impossible shapes. The Nexarian array, drawing power from the magnetosphere, began to overload. Warning signals flashed across Sarah's display as the cascade began. Energy spike detected, her systems reported. Quantum cascade initiating, cascade spreading through Nexarian network, primary array destabilizing. The Nexarian fleet, still connected to their power network, never had a chance to react. Ships began to explode as the quantum cascade tore through their formations. The massive array they had built to destroy Earth became their funeral pyre, detonating with enough force to briefly outshine Jupiter itself. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, the space around Jupiter was nearly empty. The Nexarian fleet had been annihilated, their grand weapon destroyed by their own arrogance in trying to harness too much power. The human fleet, what remained of it, began to regroup. Admiral Okonjo's voice came through clearly, despite the interference. Status report on Jupiter's magnetosphere. Sarah checked her readings, hardly daring to breathe. Stabilizing. The disruption was contained exactly as calculated. We did it. We actually did it. The celebration that erupted across human space was unlike anything in history. Against all odds, facing a technologically superior enemy, humanity had prevailed. But Sarah, studying the final battle data, felt a chill of uncertainty. They had won, yes, but at what cost? And more importantly, what would happen when the rest of the galaxy learned that humanity had not only survived, but defeated one of its most powerful civilizations? The war was over, but Sarah suspected their greatest challenges still lay ahead. 6 months after Operation Starbreak, the Great Hall of the United Earth Government was filled to capacity. Representatives from every nation, colony, and space settlement had gathered for what many were calling the most important address in human history. Admiral Victor Okonjo, newly appointed Supreme Commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, stood at the podium. The scars on his face, earned during the final battle at Jupiter, caught the light as he surveyed the assembled dignitaries. "The war is over," he began, his deep voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "But victory has its price, and that price must be understood." The holographic displays activated, showing the full toll of humanity's survival. Devastated colonies, ruined cities, the wreckage of thousands of ships still orbiting Jupiter. But also images of reconstruction, of new technologies being developed from captured Nexarian tech, of humanity pushing forward. Final casualty reports confirm over 300 million dead, 60% of our space infrastructure destroyed, 12 major cities rendered uninhabitable by quantum attacks. The economic cost exceeds anything in human history. He paused, letting the numbers sink in. But we've gained something far more valuable than what we've lost. Knowledge, experience, and most importantly, a revelation about our place in the galaxy. The displays shifted, showing intercepted communications from other alien civilizations reacting to the Nexarians' defeat. Dr. Sarah Chen, seated in the front row beside Director Reyes, watched the translations scroll past. Impossible. Humans defeated the Nexarian collective. Their quantum disruption tactics must be studied. Primitive species showing unprecedented advancement. Threat assessment of Sol system requires immediate revision. The galaxy has noticed us, Akonjo continued. The Nexarians were considered one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. Their defeat has transformed humanity's status from primitive backwater species to potential threat overnight. Director Diana Reyes stood next, her dark suit immaculate as she took her place at the podium. Our intelligence networks have detected increased activity from at least 6 major alien civilizations. Some are curious. Others are frightened. All of them are watching. The room erupted in murmurs of concern. Diana raised a hand for silence. This is both an opportunity and a danger. We've proven ourselves capable of defending our territory, but we've also shown that humanity can be innovative in ways that terrify older species. The quantum disruption technology we developed, the biological computers, our adaptation of Nexarian metamorphic capabilities. These advances happened in months, not the centuries it took other races. Which brings us to the critical question, Okonjo resumed. What do we do now? How does humanity move forward in a galaxy that suddenly sees us as a potential superpower? Dr. Sarah Chen was called to speak next. She had aged years in the past months, her hair now more grey than black, but her voice remained strong. The Nexarian technology we've recovered is centuries ahead of our previous capabilities. Their quantum science alone could transform every aspect of human civilization, but we need to be careful about how we proceed. She gestured, and new holographic models appeared, detailed scans of Nexarian artifacts and technologies. We've already seen how quantum technology can be weaponized on a massive scale. If we rush to implement these advances without fully understanding their implications, we risk destroying ourselves more thoroughly than the Nexarians ever could. General Hammond, one of the few original military leaders to survive the war, spoke from his seat. Are you suggesting we restrict scientific progress out of fear? No, Sarah replied firmly. I'm suggesting we learn from our enemies' mistakes. The Nexarians fell because they relied too heavily on a single technological paradigm. When we found a way to turn it against them, they had no backup systems, no alternative strategies. She brought up images of the new hybrid technologies her team was developing. We need to pursue multiple paths of advancement, combine traditional human ingenuity with alien science, create something new that belongs uniquely to humanity. Director Reyes took over again. There's another concern we need to address. During the war, humanity united out of necessity. Now that the immediate threat is gone, we're already seeing signs of old rivalries re-emerging. Some nations are trying to hoard recovered Nexarian technology. Others are attempting to reverse engineer weapons in secret. We can't afford to fight among ourselves, Okonjo declared. Not now. The galaxy is watching, waiting to see if we'll destroy ourselves and solve their problem for them. The discussion continued for hours as humanity's leaders debated their species' future. Gradually, a consensus began to emerge. Earth needed to present a unified front to the galaxy while carefully managing its technological advancement. The Terran Concordat was born that day, a new framework for human civilization that would balance progress with prudence, military strength with diplomatic wisdom. Sarah found herself appointed to lead the new Advanced Technologies Integration Commission, tasked with safely incorporating alien science into human society. Director Reyes' Earth Intelligence Service was expanded into the Galactic Intelligence Division, its mandate now including monitoring potential threats from across the stars. Admiral Okonjo would command the newly formed Starfleet, built from the lessons learned during the war, but its purpose would be defensive rather than expansionist, a clear message to the galaxy that humanity wanted peace while being fully capable of war. As the session ended and the dignitaries began to disperse, Sarah stood at one of the Great Hall's massive windows, looking up at the stars. So much had changed in so little time. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged transformed. "Troubled thoughts?" Diana asked, joining her at the window. "Just wondering what happens next," Sarah replied. "We've knocked over the galactic chessboard. Sooner or later, someone's going to try to put the pieces back in order. Let them try." Diana's voice held steel beneath its calm. "We're not the same species that looked up at the stars with naive wonder anymore. We've learned, adapted, grown stronger." "But have we grown wiser?" Sarah mused. "That's the real test, isn't it?" Admiral Okonjo joined them, his reflection appearing in the window. "Whether we can hold on to our humanity while becoming something more than human." The three of them stood in companionable silence, watching as orbital defense platforms tracked across the night sky, constant reminders of humanity's new vigilance. "The Nexarians thought they were gods," Sarah said finally. "That's why they fell. We can't make the same mistake." "No," Diana agreed, "but we can be better. Build something new. Show the galaxy that humanity's strength isn't just in our ability to fight, but in our ability to grow, to change, to overcome our own limitations." A bright light streaked across the sky, a new prototype ship testing its quantum drive, humanity's first steps into a much larger universe. "Whatever comes next," Okonjo said softly, "we'll face it together. Not as conquerors or victims, but as pioneers. The war taught us what we're capable of. Now we get to choose what to do with that knowledge." The stars seemed brighter somehow, more immediate. Humanity had paid a terrible price for its victory, but in doing so had earned something precious, the right to forge its own destiny among the stars. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But as Sarah watched humanity's ships patrolling the night sky, she felt something she hadn't experienced since before the war began: hope. They had survived the crucible of war. Now came the real challenge, proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. The end was just the beginning.